The day Princess Talia was born, the doctors knew something was wrong. Instead of the bright blue glow that should have pulsed beneath her skin, her light flickered and dimmed. Emperor Valen stared at his newborn daughter with dismay as the royal physician delivered the news. "Your Majesty, the princess has fading light syndrome. It affects only 1 in a million starlight births." Empress Lyra turned away, her shoulders shaking. In a society where physical perfection was not just prized but expected, a royal child with a disability was unthinkable. "Will she die?" the emperor asked. "No, Your Majesty. She will live, but she will never shine at full strength. Her mobility will be limited, and her energy will drain quickly." Emperor Valen's face hardened. No one must know. The royal bloodline cannot appear weak. And so, Princess Talia grew up hidden within the crystal walls of the palace, while other children of the Starlight elite attended grand ceremonies and trained for their future roles. Talia watched from behind special darkened screens that hid her dimmed glow. By her 10th year, when most Starlight children could fly through the air by controlling their internal energy, Talia could barely hover a few inches off the ground before collapsing in exhaustion. Her legs, thin and weak, often failed her after short walks. "I'm sorry, Father," she would say when he found her resting during her rare public appearances, limited to family-only events. "You must try harder," he would reply, never meeting her eyes. A princess cannot show weakness. But what Talia lacked in physical strength, she made up for with her mind. Confined to her rooms, she devoured knowledge from the royal libraries. Her fingers, moving slowly but precisely, built small machines that helped her move around her chambers. By 15, she had designed a hover chair that responded to her thoughts, using less energy than any device the Empire's engineers had created. "Look, Mother," Talia said one day, demonstrating how her chair could lift her to reach high shelves. "I made it myself." The Empress glanced at the invention, then quickly away. "That's nice, dear, but please keep it in your rooms. Devices like that aren't proper." Talia's light dimmed further with disappointment, but she continued inventing. She created glasses that enhanced her fading vision and braces that supported her weak limbs. Each invention was ingenious, but her parents saw them only as reminders of her flaws. When Talia turned 20, the age when royal marriages were traditionally arranged, Emperor Valen faced a problem. Alliances needed to be formed with neighboring star systems, and a royal marriage was the traditional way. After much debate, the royal advisors decided they had no choice but to present Princess Talia as a potential bride. The first suitor, Prince Dorn of the Nebula Kingdoms, arrived with great ceremony. Talia spent hours preparing, using her inventions to strengthen her glow temporarily and support her posture. When she entered the Great Hall, leaning on a disguised support staff she had designed, the visiting prince's face showed nothing but shock. "This is the princess," he asked, not bothering to lower his voice. "But she's flickering." Emperor Valen's expression remained diplomatic, but his light pulsed with shame. "My daughter has many qualities that make up for her condition." But Prince Dorn had already turned away. "I'm afraid this won't work. The Nebula Kingdoms need strength in all alliances." 5 more suitors came. 5 more rejections followed. After the last one left, Talia sat alone in her workshop, tears falling onto the circuitry of her newest invention, a communication device that could transmit messages faster than any in the Empire. "They don't see," she whispered to herself. "They look at my light, but they don't see what I can build, what I can think, what I can do." Little did she know that far away, a species that didn't glow at all was preparing for their first journey to the Starlight Empire, a species that might see value in more than just a bright, steady light. The news spread quickly through the Crystal Palace. A strange ship from a distant planet called Earth had entered their star system. These humans had finally developed technology advanced enough for deep space travel and had detected the Starlight Empire's communications. Emperor Valen called an emergency meeting of his advisors. "What do we know about these humans?" he asked, his light pulsing with concern. "They appear physically weak, Your Majesty," said the chief advisor. "They don't glow at all. Their bodies are fragile and solid. But their technology is impressive for such a young species." The emperor nodded. "We need their metals and minerals. Our empire grows, but our resources shrink. Prepare for diplomatic talks." In her private chambers, Talia watched recordings of the human ship's approach on her self-designed viewing screen. Unlike the sleek, light-powered vessels of her people, the human ship was bulky and mechanical. Yet something about its design fascinated her. They solve problems differently, she whispered to herself, making notes on her tablet. 3 days later, the human delegation arrived. Their leader, Captain James, stood before the emperor and his court. He looked strange to the Starlight people with his solid form and dull skin that absorbed light instead of giving it off. "We bring greetings from Earth," James said, bowing slightly. His translator device converted his words to the musical language of the Starlight Empire. "We hope to establish peaceful relations and trade between our worlds." Emperor Valen nodded with practiced politeness, though his advisor's lights dimmed with distaste at the human's appearance. "The Starlight Empire welcomes you," the emperor said. "We will begin negotiations tomorrow. Tonight, please enjoy our hospitality." As always during important events, Princess Talia was kept hidden away. She watched the reception through the palace security feed she had secretly tapped into. The humans moved differently than her people, with steady steps rather than the floating grace of the Starlight elite. They seemed stronger in some ways, weaker in others. Later that night, while the court slept, Talia couldn't contain her curiosity. Using her hover chair, she quietly made her way to the library, where she could access better information about these visitors. She didn't expect anyone to be there. But as she entered, she saw a figure standing by the knowledge crystals, holding one up to the light. Captain James. Talia froze. No outsider had seen her in years. She started to back her chair away, but it bumped against the door with a soft sound. James turned, startled. His eyes widened at the sight of her, a slender alien with a flickering, dim glow in a floating chair. "I'm sorry," he said. "I was told I could visit the library." Talia hesitated, her heart racing. She should leave. She should call the guards. Instead, she said, "You're holding the crystal wrong. It won't activate that way." James looked down at the crystal in his hands. "Oh, how should I hold it?" Talia moved her chair forward and reached out with trembling hands. "Like this. Your fingers here, and then you think about what you want to know." As she demonstrated, the crystal lit up, projecting images of Earth into the air between them. James smiled. "Thank you. Are you part of the royal family?" He gestured to her fine clothes. Talia stiffened. "I am Princess Talia. You weren't supposed to meet me." "Why not?" James asked, looking genuinely confused. Talia gestured to her dimmed glow, her hover chair, the braces on her legs. "Isn't it obvious? I'm defective." James tilted his head, studying her. "Defective? I don't understand. You seem intelligent. You just showed me how to use your technology." "My light is wrong," Talia explained, surprised at having to state something so clear. "I cannot walk far or fly. I tire quickly." James shrugged. "On Earth, many people use mobility devices. It doesn't make them less valuable." Talia stared at him, her glow brightening slightly with surprise. "Your people don't hide away those who are different." "Not anymore," James said. "We learned that different perspectives often lead to the best solutions." He smiled again. "Speaking of solutions, is that chair your design? The engineering looks unique." For the first time in her life, someone was looking at her invention rather than her disability. Talia's glow pulsed brighter than it had in years. "Yes," she said. "Would you like to see how it works?" Over the next few weeks, Captain James found reasons to visit the library often. Each time, Princess Talia was there waiting, her glow slightly brighter than the day before. Their meetings remained secret from the emperor and the court. "Show me what else you've made," James said one evening, sitting across from her. Talia hesitated, then pressed a button on her chair. A small compartment opened, revealing a collection of tiny devices. "This helps me see distant objects," she explained, picking up what looked like a pair of thin crystal glasses. "And this," she held up a bracelet, "monitors my energy levels and warns me when I need to rest." James examined each invention with genuine wonder. "These are far beyond what we have on Earth. Have you shown these to your engineers?" Talia's glow dimmed. "No one asks what I create. They only see what I cannot do." "Their loss," James said simply. "On Earth, you'd be leading a research team." The next day, James brought her something. A small book of human stories. "It's called The Little Prince," he explained, "about a boy who travels between planets and learns what truly matters." Talia touched the paper pages with wonder. "We store everything digitally. This is beautiful." As diplomatic talks continued between their peoples, Talia and James shared knowledge. She taught him about starlight technology, and he told her about Earth's history and culture. "Your people value different things than mine," Talia observed one day. James nodded. "We've learned, sometimes the hard way, that worth isn't about physical perfection. Some of our greatest minds used mobility devices or thought differently from others." This idea was revolutionary to Talia. Could there be value in difference, in seeing problems from another angle? One evening, Talia decided to show James her workshop. They snuck through rarely used palace corridors, Talia leading the way in her hover chair. "Be careful," she whispered. "No one comes here, but if we're seen together, there will be questions." Her workshop was hidden behind a false wall in an old storage room. When the door slid open, James gasped. The space was filled with inventions: energy converters, communication devices, mobility aids, and things James couldn't even recognize. Blueprints and diagrams covered the walls. "You built all this?" he asked, walking slowly through the room. Talia nodded. "When you can't move easily, your mind travels instead." James stopped at a large diagram in the center of the room. "What's this?" "A new engine design," Talia explained, moving her chair closer. "Our ships run on light energy, but it's inefficient for long journeys. This combines light energy with the kind of fuel your ships use. It would be 200% more efficient than either system alone." James stared at her. This could revolutionize space travel for both our peoples." Talia's glow pulsed. "It's just an idea. No one would listen to me, even if I shared it." "They should," James said firmly. "This technology could solve the resource shortage your father mentioned in the trade talks. It could help Earth, too." A noise in the corridor made them both freeze. Footsteps approached, then passed by. "The Emperor grows suspicious of your interest in our culture," Talia whispered when it was safe. "He's asked his advisors why you spend so much time in the library." James frowned. "I should be more careful. I don't want to cause trouble for you." "It's worth it," Talia said quietly. "No one has ever talked to me like you do. Like I matter." "You do matter," James replied. "Your mind is incredible, Talia. Your people just can't see past their own prejudice." As they spoke, neither noticed the small surveillance drone hovering near the ceiling, one of the Emperor's new security measures. In his private chambers, Emperor Valen watched the feed with growing anger. "The human has found my daughter," he said to the Empress. "He's filling her head with dangerous ideas." "Perhaps we should introduce her properly," the Empress suggested. "If the humans don't find her condition distasteful." "No," the Emperor cut her off. "These meetings must stop. The human captain is too interested in her inventions. He seeks to steal our technology through her." He shut off the screen and called for his guards. "The trade negotiations conclude tomorrow," he ordered. "After that, the humans will leave, and Princess Talia will have no more unauthorized visitors." The next morning, Princess Talia was summoned to her father's private chambers, something that hadn't happened in years. She entered nervously, her hover chair making soft humming sounds in the tense silence. "You have been meeting with the human captain," Emperor Valen said. It wasn't a question. Talia's glow flickered with fear, but she raised her chin. "Yes, father. Captain James has been kind to me." "Kind?" The Emperor's light flashed bright with anger. "He uses you to learn our secrets. The humans want our technology, and he found the weakest link in our royal house to exploit." "That's not true," Talia protested. "James values my ideas. He thinks my inventions could help both our peoples." The Emperor scoffed. "Your inventions? What could you possibly create that our best engineers haven't already perfected?" Before Talia could answer, a royal guard burst into the room. "Your Majesty, urgent news from the border outposts." The Emperor turned. "Speak." "The Void Reavers, sir. They've destroyed 3 of our colonies in the outer systems. Their fleet is moving toward the center worlds." The Emperor's glow paled. The Void Reavers were ancient enemies of the Starlight people, dark, shadowy beings that consumed light and energy. Their attacks had been growing more frequent in recent years. "Call the War Council," the Emperor ordered, "and inform our human guests that they must delay their departure. It's not safe to travel now." As the guard left, Talia spoke up. "Father, I've been studying the Void Reavers' attack patterns. I think I know." "Enough," her father snapped. "Return to your rooms and stay there. This is no matter for someone like you." Hours later, confined to her chambers, Talia watched the emergency broadcasts on her screen. The Void Reavers had destroyed the Empire's main defense station. Their ships were now just 2 days from the homeworld. A soft knock on her door startled her. When she opened it, James stood there with 2 of his crew members. "I heard about the attack," he said quickly. "Your father has asked us to stay until it's safe to leave, but he's refusing any help we offer." Talia moved aside to let them in. "The Void Reavers consume light energy. Our weapons are useless against them because they simply absorb the energy and grow stronger." One of James's crew, a woman named Alex, nodded. "We've reviewed the data, but why hasn't your father evacuated the planet?" "Pride," Talia said simply. "And there's nowhere to go. The Reavers will hunt down any escaping ships." James looked at her intently. "You said you've studied their attack patterns. What did you find?" For the first time, someone was asking for her opinion on something important. Talia moved to her computer and pulled up her research. "Look here," she said, pointing to a series of diagrams. "The Reavers always attack in a spiral pattern, moving from outpost to outpost in exactly this formation. And they always target our strongest energy sources first." "They feed on power," James mused. "Yes, but they're blind to anything that doesn't emit energy," Talia continued. "I've designed a shield that doesn't use light energy, but instead creates a cold space around a ship or planet. They literally wouldn't be able to see us." Alex's eyes widened. "That could work. Have you shown this to your father's War Council?" Talia's glow dimmed. "I tried. They wouldn't listen." A loud alarm suddenly blared through the palace. The palace communication system activated. "The Void Reavers have breached our outer defenses," announced a grim voice. "All citizens prepare for possible evacuation." James and his crew exchanged looks. "We need to get to our ship," he said. "We have weapons that don't use light energy." "I'm coming with you," Talia said firmly. "Your father would never allow it," James pointed out. At that moment, Talia's private communicator beeped. A message from one of her few allies in the palace, a young servant. "The Emperor has made a deal with the Void Reavers. They demand a royal sacrifice, one with royal blood but weak light. He has agreed to give them Princess Talia." Talia stared at the message, her glow almost going out entirely with shock. "We need to leave now," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "My father has decided my worth after all. I'm to be the sacrifice that saves the Empire." The human ship broke through the Starlight Empire's atmosphere just as the palace guards discovered Princess Talia was missing. Inside the ship, Talia watched her home world grow smaller through the viewing window, her glow dim with mixed emotions. "I've never left the palace before," she said quietly. "Now I'm leaving my planet entirely." James sat beside her. "We'll keep you safe. The Void Reavers won't find you on Earth." The journey to Earth took 12 days. During that time, Talia shared all her research on the Void Reavers with the human crew. They sent encrypted messages back to Earth, preparing for her arrival and the potential threat that might follow. When they finally entered Earth's atmosphere, Talia pressed her face to the window. Earth was so different from her world, blue and green and brown, without the crystal spires and light fields she knew. "It's beautiful," she whispered. The ship landed at a special facility built for off-world visitors. A group of humans waited to greet them, including leaders from Earth's United Defense Council. "Welcome to Earth, Princess Talia," said a woman named Dr. Moore, who rolled forward in a wheeled chair. "I'll be your guide during your stay with us." Talia stared in surprise. "You use a mobility device too?" Dr. Moore smiled. "I was injured in an accident 10 years ago. This chair lets me continue my work as a physicist." "And you're a leader?" Talia asked, still confused. "One of our best scientific minds," James confirmed. "Dr. Moore developed the shielding technology for our deep space vessels." Over the next few weeks, Talia discovered a world unlike anything she had imagined. On Earth, people with all types of bodies and abilities worked together. She met scientists who used mobility devices, engineers with prosthetic limbs, and leaders who communicated in different ways. "On my world, I was hidden away," she told Dr. Moore as they worked together in a laboratory. "Here, no one stares at my dim light or my hover chair." "Earth wasn't always this way," Dr. Moore explained. "We learned, over centuries, that different perspectives lead to innovation. Your hover chair design has already inspired our engineers to improve our technology." Talia's work didn't stop. With Earth's resources and willing helpers, she refined her cold shield technology. She created a working prototype that could hide a small building from energy sensors. "If we can scale this up," James said during a test, "we could protect cities, maybe even planets." News from the Starlight Empire was grim. The Void Reavers had taken 3 more systems and were closing in on the homeworld. Emperor Velen had sent messages across the galaxy, offering rewards for his daughter's return. "He doesn't want me back because he cares," Talia said bitterly when she heard this. "He still thinks I'm a sacrifice that will save them." One evening, Talia attended a gathering of scientists and engineers. People asked her questions about her inventions and listened to her ideas. No one commented on her flickering glow or her hover chair. A young engineer approached her with a sketch. "Princess, I was inspired by your cold shield design. What if we modified it to work as a weapon against the Void Reavers?" Talia studied the drawing. "This could work. If we reverse the field, it would create a void that even the Reavers couldn't consume." Later that night, Talia sat in her Earth quarters, looking at images of her home world. Despite everything, she missed it. She thought of her people, facing destruction because of her father's pride and their inability to see beyond their prejudices. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. James entered with a serious expression. "We just received a transmission," he said. "The Void Reavers have surrounded your home world. The palace is under attack." Talia's glow pulsed with sudden resolve. "How soon can we return?" James looked surprised. "Return? After how they treated you?" Talia moved her hover chair closer to him. "They're still my people, James. And now I know something they don't." "What's that?" he asked. "That being different isn't a weakness," she said. "It's my strength, and I'm going to use it to save them." The human ship approached the Starlight Empire with its engines running dark. Aboard, Princess Talia sat in her upgraded hover chair, surrounded by a team of Earth's best scientists and soldiers. The cold shield technology she had developed cloaked the vessel completely. "The Void Reavers can't detect us," Talia explained, looking at the monitors showing the enemy ships surrounding her homeworld. Their dark, twisted forms absorbed all light around them, creating patches of nothingness against the stars. "We're invisible to them." James stood beside her, checking the weapon systems they had built based on Talia's designs. "Remember, we go in fast. Deploy the planetary shield generator, and then get to the palace." Dr. Moore nodded from her station. "The generator needs 20 minutes to power it up. Once we set it on the surface, the palace shields will fail before then." Talia's glow pulsed with determination. "My father may have given up on me, but I won't give up on my people." As they broke through the atmosphere, the destruction below became clear. The beautiful crystal cities were shattered. The light fields that once illuminated the night were dark. The palace alone still stood, protected by its emergency shields, but those too were failing as the Void Reavers circled it like hungry predators. The human ship landed in a hidden valley near the capital. The team quickly unloaded the shield generator, a massive device that would create a cold field around the entire planet, making it invisible to the energy-seeking Reavers. 15 minutes until it's operational, Dr. Moore announced after they activated it. "We need to reach the palace before then." Talia led the way through secret tunnels she had discovered as a child. Her weak legs had never allowed her to explore them fully, but her hover chair now glided smoothly through the narrow passages. "The throne room is ahead," she whispered as they reached the palace interior. "My father will be there." When they burst into the throne room, chaos greeted them. Royal guards fought against shadowy creatures that had breached the inner defenses. Emperor Valen stood with his back to his throne, his light flickering weakly as he fired energy blasts that the Reavers simply absorbed. "Father," Talia called out. The Emperor turned, his eyes widening in shock. "Talia, you came back. After I." "There's no time," she interrupted. "We have a way to stop the Reavers, but we need to hold them off for 10 more minutes." James and his soldiers deployed portable cold field generators around the throne room, creating safe zones where the Reavers couldn't sense anything. The shadowy creatures paused, confused by the sudden disappearance of their prey. "What is this technology?" the Emperor asked, staring at the devices. "Mine," Talia said simply. "The same technology you dismissed because it came from your defective daughter." A massive explosion shook the palace. Through the windows, they could see the largest Reaver ship hovering directly overhead, tearing at the palace's main shield. "The main shield is failing," a guard shouted. 5 more minutes until the planetary shield activates," Dr. Moore reported, checking her device. Talia moved her hover chair to the throne room's control panel. "I need to redirect all remaining power to the roof shields." "You can't do that," the Emperor protested. "It will leave the rest of the palace exposed." "Trust me," Talia said, her fingers already flying over the controls. "For once in your life, trust me." The Emperor looked at his daughter, really looked at her, and saw not a weak, flickering light, but a confident leader making tough decisions. Silently, he stepped aside. Talia redirected the power. The roof shields strengthened just as the Reavers broke through the outer defenses. Throughout the palace, smaller breaches appeared as Reavers slipped through unprotected areas. 2 minutes, Dr. Moore called out. The throne room doors burst open as Reavers poured in. James and his team created a defensive line around Talia and the Emperor. "Get behind me," Talia told her father, activating a personal cold field around her hover chair. For the first time in her life, the Emperor looked at his daughter with something new in his eyes. Respect. 1 minute, Dr. Moore shouted over the chaos. The largest Reaver ship fired its main weapon at the palace. The impact sent cracks through the crystal walls. The throne room ceiling began to collapse. "Everyone into the cold fields," James ordered. As debris fell around them, Talia expanded her personal field to cover her father. Their eyes met across the small space. "I was wrong about you," the Emperor admitted, his voice barely audible over the destruction. "I was always wrong." Suddenly, silence fell. The attacking reavers froze, then turned their shadowy forms toward the sky, as if listening to something only they could hear. "The planetary shield is active," Dr. Moore announced triumphantly. Outside, the Void Reavers' ships began to move away from the planet, unable to detect any energy or light from its surface. The shadowy creatures in the throne room dissipated into nothingness. "It worked," Talia whispered, her glow brightening with relief. "They can't see us anymore." 6 months after the Void Reaver attack, the Starlight Empire looked very different. The crystal cities were being rebuilt, not exactly as they were before, but stronger and more accessible. New ramps and lifts appeared alongside the traditional floating platforms. Buildings were designed with multiple ways to enter and move through them. Princess Talia stood on the balcony of the newly rebuilt Science Academy, watching workers install a garden designed for people with all types of mobility. Her hover chair, now decorated with the royal crest, glimmered in the sunlight. "Princess, the Emperor requests your presence," a young aide said, bowing deeply, a gesture of respect, once reserved only for those with the brightest glow. Talia nodded and followed the aide to the palace's main hall, where Emperor Valen waited with a group of officials and visitors. When she entered, everyone turned and bowed. "My daughter," the Emperor said warmly, his own glow brightening at her approach. "Our guests from the Stellar Alliance have arrived to discuss your cold shield technology." The visitors, representatives from 7 different alien species, looked at Talia with interest and respect. "We've heard much about the princess who saved her world," said one, a tall being with 4 arms. "Our scientists are eager to work with you." After the meeting, Talia and her father walked through the palace gardens. It still felt strange to Talia, moving freely through public spaces without hiding. "The Nebula Kingdom has sent another message," the Emperor said carefully. "Prince Dorn wishes to reopen marriage negotiations." Talia laughed, her glow pulsing with genuine amusement. "The same prince who rejected me because I was flickering." The Emperor looked embarrassed. "Yes, he says he now sees the value in different perspectives. You can tell him I'm too busy running the research institute," Talia replied, referring to the new organization she had founded, which welcomed scientists of all abilities from across the galaxy. "I thought you might say that," her father said with a small smile. "The Earth delegation arrives tomorrow. I believe Captain James will be leading it." Talia's glow brightened noticeably. "Yes, they're bringing more scientists to exchange knowledge with us." The Emperor nodded thoughtfully. "I've been thinking about what you said, about how Earth values differences. I've issued a new decree. No child born with fading light syndrome or any other condition will be hidden away again. They will be valued for who they are." "That's a start," Talia said, "but there's more to do." The next day, as the Earth ship landed, crowds gathered to welcome them. Unlike before, no one stared or whispered when Dr. Moore rolled down the ramp in her wheelchair, or when other humans with various devices and differences appeared. James was the last to exit the ship. When he saw Talia waiting, his smile matched the brightness of her glow. "Welcome back to the Starlight Empire," she said formally, but her eyes held warmth. "It looks different," James observed, gazing at the rebuilt city with its new designs. "It is different," Talia agreed. "We're different." Later that evening, after the official welcome ceremony, Talia took James to her new workshop at the top of the research institute. Unlike her old hidden space, this one had wide windows and many assistants, young starlight people who once would have been hidden away for their imperfections. "Look," she said, showing him her latest invention, a communication device that could translate between any species in the galaxy. "This will help us understand each other better." "You've accomplished so much," James said. "Your people finally see what I saw when we first met." Talia's glow pulsed gently. "What did you see?" "A brilliant mind, a kind heart, a person worth knowing," James replied simply. Outside the window, they could see ships arriving from across the galaxy, scientists, diplomats, and students coming to learn from the princess who had saved her world, because she saw problems differently. A young child with a dimmed glow, using a small hover chair just like Talia's once was, waved excitedly from the garden below. Talia waved back. "What happens next?" James asked, standing close beside her chair. Talia looked out at her changing world, then back at the human who had first seen her true worth. "Something new," she said, her glow bright and steady. "Something better than before." As the sun set over the Starlight Empire, two different worlds and two different people found common ground in the stars, and Princess Talia, once hidden away and unwanted, became a bridge between them all, proving that true worth comes not from perfection, but from what makes each of us uniquely ourselves.